2024. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Kowcheck.
Here.
Harmon.
Here.
Mattsdorf. Here. Gilson.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Penquitz.
Here.
Binder.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Next is the approval of the minutes from May 14th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second motion.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 3, discussion and recommendation of replacement battery backup system. Tim, you want to give us a summary
I'll
on
give a
that?
brief summary, and then Electric Operations Manager Ryan Rayborn is here tonight and can talk a little more about the system if we have any other additional questions. So the utilities building is now 12 years old. Some components are now beginning to need repair or replacement. The battery backup system and charger unit have deteriorated over time. And this system is crucial as it provides emergency backup power to the utilities building and our city utility network and servers. So we did price out a 4-hour backup and an 8-hour backup. The 8-hour backup is basically a matching system to what we have now. This system is not currently budgeted for 2024. However, delaying until the 2025 budget does create a potential outage risk, which could disrupt staff operations, logistics, and general utility network servers. So the electric utility does have available funding to cover the cost in the 2024 budget. Again, the 8-hour backup option matches the current system. Though, again, we do have a 4-hour backup option as well. Typically, power can be restored within an hour or two, but again, longer restoration times are possible during a significant outage event. So staff does want the committee's feedback because this was an unbudgeted item. We're taking this to committee first. Proceeding with the project in 2024 versus 25 in between the 4 and 8-hour backup systems. And Ryan, do you just want to give any additional updates or?
You got it pretty well there.
Okay.
That's the main difference, the big difference between 8-hour and 4 was about $20,000. So the batteries alone for an 8-hour are about $84,000. The batteries for a 4-hour are $67,000, $64,000, and then the charger for either unit was about $13,000, and labor is $10,000 for each. To change it out.
Council have any questions?
I do.
Preferences?
Matt,
Greg?
what is the difference between the 4-hour and 8-hour in lifespan?
The light,
Is there a difference in the lifespan of 4 hours versus the 8-hour?
not that I was aware of. I didn't mention of. So for the most part, the battery's a battery, and unfortunately, what happened with the old unit is some of the batteries were failing, but we were monitoring them. We do yearly tests on them and random inspections, and in between that, the battery charger failed. And when the battery charger failed, there was no power going to any of the batteries, and it caused all the batteries to go bad at that point. So with the new charger, the new system, the charger does have monitoring on it that we can link to our, I don't know if it would be SCADA, but to our computer systems that would have constant monitoring and alert us if we would lose power or if anything would happen to the charger or specific battery cells. Is what I'm quoting.
And what do you recommend?
I'm comfortable with the 4-hour. Barring any natural disaster, we can get power back in within 4 hours. Like I said, barring any natural major disasters, 4 hours gives us plenty of time.
So the purpose of the backup system is to keep everything up and going, not just to power it down gently? Is that true?
No, yep, so in our office, if you walk around, every office has blue outlet covers. Those blue outlet covers are connected to those blue outlets are connected to the UPS system, and that's where our computers are plugged into mainly, to prevent, if there would be an outage, we wouldn't lose power to our computers and lose any work we're working on, and be able to keep those systems running and not lose any work that's unsafe work up to that point either.
Other questions?
I have a question. Is this a lot of money as it pertains to your available funds? I mean, do you have a lot of available funds where this isn't really a big thing?
Mike, I guess I would just say the electric utility does have fund balance to cover this amount.
Okay.
Comes down to a question of the need for the 8 versus the need for the 4 and running short.
Correct. What council and owners would be more comfortable with. One has $20,000 savings, we feel better with a 8-hour backup, you know, like I said, with barring a natural disaster. The last time we had anybody out for usually 4 hours, I think, for the tornadoes, we had back in 18. Otherwise, most of our outages, anywhere we start within less than 4 hours.
Quick question.
Jeff?
Currently, we have that, it's an 8-hour backup system, right?
Correct.
So if we would go to 4, we're going backwards.
That's true.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I personally feel better having 8 hours and a little wiggle room is, Jeff, you pointed it out. Thank you. I was gonna point that out because I think it's to our advantage to have, a little safe spot there. And every time you don't think you're gonna need it, you end up wishing you had it. Murphy's Law, so. What's the preference of the, council? John?
I agree with you also, and plus your comment about tornadoes, you know, Wisconsin, first time in its history, had one in February already. And with the kind of things that are happening around, you know, the United States, and the strong winds that occur without tornadoes are just as damaging, knocking down trees and maybe putting us behind as far as keeping our electricity going. So I would be in favor of 8-hour also.
What's our preference, people? We'll start over on my left, and 4 or 8, Dave.
Well, I guess I would have one more question then, is, how often have you had a power outage that lasts more than 4 hours?
in general, to the utility bill,
To when it's backing up,
not that I can think of offhand.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure we can get away with 4, but the price difference isn't overly significant, so I can favor 8, that's fine.
Okay. Angie?
I'm indifferent. I mean,
Okay. John?
Yeah.
Indifferent? Greg?
I'd say for the money too, when I was reading this over, go with the 8 rather than the 4, even though you kind of recommend it, but the money's just too close.
It is, it's not a big, for when you get to that.
In the scheme of things, it's not a huge number. Jeff?
I would go the 8-hour because the difference is not a deal killer in my opinion.
Diane?
I would go with 8.
Okay. Mike?
8.
8. John? 8. Answer is 8.
Sounds good. We will
Recommendation of
prepare
council is
that for
to
the next council agenda.
go forward with the 8 and bring it for information.
Sounds good.
Do we want to officially
I don't
vote
think,
on that?
I don't think we need a motion. I think just
Good.
general direction.
Yeah,
will work.
just bring it forward. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ryan. Moving on to item 4, discussion and recommendation for floodplain ordinance. And who's gonna,
You know, I'll introduce our Public Works Director, Kathy Austin, who's going to handle this one. And essentially, we have to update our floodplain ordinance by August 2024. 28th of 2024. So Kathy's going to kind of run through the changes, and there's one, I would say, large point of discussion tonight. The rest are, a lot of them are required.
So the city was notified by the DNR that we have to update our flood insurance maps and the flood insurance study that is referenced in our zoning code. And as part of that, the DNR has given a model ordinance that will meet all the national flood insurance plan. So in order to, we have a floodplain ordinance, so that our residents and businesses are able to purchase the flood insurances at a reduced rate. And if we don't have a floodplain ordinance, or we don't have one that meets DNR and FEMA's requirements, we're not eligible for that program. So that's why we have to have it, why we enforce it, and then they continue to provide changes to it, and then now is the time to update. In the city of Plymouth, no maps change, so they're still the same maps we're referencing, so no one is in and no new people are out. It was just the flood insurance study that was updated for Sheboygan County, so that's what kind of triggered these next couple events that we have to do. So as part of it, I tried to summarize the changes. The big ones, that again, these are required changes in order for us to meet the minimum requirements. Now, we can be more stringent, but you can't be less stringent, right? So one, in our current code, we allow for changes of 0.01 feet. In the new code, there's anytime someone wants to build, it can't increase the floodplain at all. So that's a new change. And then as far as accessory structures go, we had a caveat if it was a 600 square foot or less and valued at less than 10,000. And then it had a couple other restrictions it needed to meet. You could build a small garage in a floodplain without any complicate, or what we would say, requirements. That's no longer either. So everything has to be at or above floodplain elevations, even for accessory structures now. So that part would come out of our code. And then currently our permits expired after 1 year of issuance. They're now 180 days. So again, there's a lot of other tweaks, and it's added definitions, further standards, as I kind of tried to outline in the memo. But the big discussion for tonight is what DNR calls Act 175. And that has to do with buildings that are located in the floodplain. So if they would be considered a non-conforming structure. So anything non-conforming would have met zoning code at one point, and it no longer meets zoning code. Again, if it was, the building can now just be located in a floodplain, but maybe when it was built, it wasn't. So the current code prohibits any work above 50% of the current assessed value, right? So the purpose of that was if they were so far gone, you're removing the structures from the floodplain. Now the DNR is allowing municipalities to make the decision whether or not you want to keep or remove that 50% caveat, right? So if you enact 175, you'd be allowing buildings to make whatever amount of improvements they want to make. So if they have a $100,000 building, assessed building, they, currently they can only do 50,000 of improvements. If we enact 175, they could make $200,000 improvements to meet the flood proofing requirements. Again, there's still requirements that they need to do. They still have to get any living space at or above floodplain elevation for safety. But the dollar amount is no longer a hindrance to get them to be able to do those things. So that's what Act 175 allows. If we incorporate that into our ordinance, the dollar amount figure doesn't matter. So that would be the biggest caveat. And the DNR sees some municipalities incorporating it, some not. It's really kind of been a 50-50. So if you think we shouldn't hinder improvements to buildings, and if a developer wants to stick a lot of money into it, again, they still have to meet flood proofing. Again, no living space is at or below, it has to be above floodplain elevation. So there's still restrictions, but again, the dollar amount does not hinder that work to be done. So that's the biggest one of whether or not we should enact 175.
So as an example of that, maybe the old utilities building that's right on the shore.
Correct.
You know,
So right now,
we
right now, they're restricted to 50% of the assessed value, right? If you incorporate 1 Act 75, again, they still have to do flood proofing. There's still mechanical storage areas that have to be watched if they're below. So there's still a bunch of criteria that needs to be met, but no longer dollar is a factor. So I would say, in communities that like the Fox River or something that has substantial flooding year after year, right? They probably want to get those buildings out, right? So they might keep the 50%, right?
Yeah.
But, so I think those are things to think about, whether, you know, if you had substantial active flooding, and that, we'd probably be proposing a different scenario.
Any other questions? Everybody understand the main purpose of enacting the change? I've come across several properties since being mayor that, quite honestly, they were restricted because of the 50%. And if you want to do it correctly, sometimes you got to spend more money. So certainly, I think that enacting 175 and allowing a larger, you're taking the risk on, you're still subject to all the rules and regulations, but raising that basically to no limit is a good thing. And if it's beyond repair, well, then you make that decision yourself too. It's an individual thing.
Was that act a state act or a federal?
Yep, so it's, a state act.
Yeah. I'm surprised the federal government did that.
Don't call them. John?
Is flood insurance required by homeowners? I know for the bank, a bank loan
Yeah, it'd be
would
up to your
require.
lender, right?
So
Yep.
otherwise they have a choice as far as what they want.
Usually it's all lender-based.
Yeah.
I think generally speaking, if it's in a floodplain, you need flood insurance, but there might be some opt-outs, but then you take the risk on too. Unless you do a survey, we've got places in Plymouth that did a individual survey, and it showed that they were out of the floodplain by a foot, and, you know, a couple properties on the east side, and they were surveyed and they're out of it, where the next door neighbor is still in it, but they had to pay quite a bit for that study, so, you know, that's always an annual cost too. So how do we feel about recommending the, change in the floodplain ordinance?
Would you like a motion?
Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to refer modifications of ordinance section 13/2 to include, incorporate Act 175 to the Plan Commission.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, on it.
Herman,
Yes.
Matsdorf,
Yes.
Binder,
Yes,
Penkwitz,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Nelson,
No,
Tauschak,
Yes.
Hildebrand.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Moving on to item 5, demonstration of online strategic plan. Tonight we have with us our IT professional. The floor is yours, Dave.
If you all remember, most of you, some of you this is new, is we got together and had a few sessions for our strategic plan that we created. And we basically got it all boiled down, and there's a lot of information. So I took the opportunity to work with our city administrator to come up with a tool to help compile and bring all this information together. So that's what we are showing you, and there's basically 2 parts to it. One is for the department heads to it's for the department heads to come in and update the strategic plan so it's kept current. And then the other part is to provide a tool for the public as well as yourselves to go and see if you want to check on the status, of the plan. So this is the internal one I'm showing you right now, what we can do just a high level. I started it, and for the front homepage of it, I put our mission, vision, and our core values, just as a reminder of what we're all about. Under the strategic planning, as you remember, we had our strategic plan goals. The screen comes up. Basically, we broke it down into goals, then we broke it down into initiatives, and we broke it down into activities. Basic three, and then we had all of our subordinate detail as far as measures of success and such. So here we have our goals, and I'm going to go into one just as an example for efficient operations. So for our goals and efficient operations, it will come up, and I apologize, I have quite a bit going on my laptop. So basically we have, here's the goal, we can put a description if we want, and then under efficient operations are all the initiatives that we came up with working with our consultants. So we have like our create street improvement strategy, comprehensive tech strategy, outage management system, batteries, and our infrastructure plan. So I'm going to go into the tech strategy. And the other thing I should have put in here, as you can see, I also attached the core value to each one. And by attaching core values, that kind of keeps us on track of everything that we're doing as a project and initiative is actually also tied to our core values as well. So, so basically for here, you can see then we have the initiatives, and then under each initiative is an activity. So what I'm going to basically do is go into the, scroll down here, hardware software needs, and if we go further into this, you can see that, once it comes up, here you can see that the initiative, the activity, who is mostly responsible. We did it by, instead of by person, we did it by role, because as people come and go, we can then, whoever takes that new role, can then continue right on instead of having to go back and dating everything. And then there's a target date that we had when we expected it, one was the actual completion date. And then obviously here, then we have our levels of measures of completion, that we know that this was a successful and it was completed and the things that we achieved as far as that goes. We can also display it. And the reason why we're displaying it is we can also attach, based on our, I don't have them on this one, it has to be filled in, what we also did is the strategic, or the capital plan that we submit to you guys every year, those projects that we put in there, since they're high dollar capital projects, we have the capability of taking those projects and then tying them to an actual strategic plan, activity initiative, so we can kind of line up and report on where things are going and how they're aligning in our strategic plan. As far as that goes, so it all compiles together. And this is what the tool that the department heads would use. In a nutshell, basically then we can go back to the list. We also have then a strategic plan combined, where I basically tie everything together that we can then export for a high-level summary routine to report out to you guys. So you kind of give you a snapshot of where everything is kind of been going, and it's by the goal, the initiative, and obviously the activity, as far as how it all rolls together. And this is all information that we compiled in all of our strategic planning sessions that we had, and all the interviews that were done, and everything that was boiled down. So we have it in a single spot, so it's not forgotten, and we continue to move forward with this plan that we can report on. On the website, whenever we choose to put it out there, that'll be up to the mayor and our city administrator to decide. I have a sample, or not a sample, I have a mock-up too, where people can come to, or yourselves, and again, they come with this. And then here we have the strategic plan that will come up, that we'll be able to put live. And again, it's a similar thing, but a higher level that you can either look at, display, or if you want, we can come up here You can export your results to Excel, so that way you have a spreadsheet for yourselves to look at, review, or share. I was just throwing quite a bit at you guys, but it's just a matter of just to give you an idea of where we're going this and what we're doing for tools to keep it up to date, so we stay, active with our strategic plan.
You have this incorporated in our capital budget plan for each department?
Yes, any capital budget that we use our tool with to report on, we can tie it to one of these goals, initiative, activity combinations.
Do you keep any financial information in this system? I mean, so each initiative, what it costs, is that located in this system or is that just in the budgeting system?
We have it in here for reporting on our internal tool. So we can go like, here's what's for this initiative, this is what the capital project.
But we would not see that. We would not see that though, right?
Correct. But we can report it to you in a separate report if we want to roll it up and report to you guys. As far as it goes, it's just a way of making sure that we are aligning anything we ask for, that we're putting it into the right areas, the right projects, and the right parts of the plan, not that we go, zooming off on something that really doesn't have anything to do with what we're about or whatever else, you go, why are you doing that when it's not even part of our strategic plan? That's kind of what it's meant for.
Dave, what you're saying is, right, us, the council, and the citizens will have access to our strategic plan online, correct?
A high level where they can look and see what we're all working on and what's going on. It's not live out there yet, we just need to know when you want to.
We wanted to give
That'll be up to
council a demo first, and then
Yeah.
we'll be getting it online.
Excellent. John, quick question.
I'm a new council member, so I wasn't part of the process of putting this together. Is this an ongoing thing, or is it a one-year process that's revisited every year, or?
So the strategic plan, the initiatives, it was a 3-year timeline.
Okay.
So we did the initial timeline, and then we're doing, I believe it's every 6 months check-ins with our consultant at the staff level.
And they suggested that we had some type of a tool to keep track of all this new reporting on and measure our completions, our successes and everything. So we put this together rather than going out and purchasing a tool that obviously would cost funds.
Are you ready to go live with it?
I think for the most part, we are.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very soon. I think, and then kudos to Dave. There's a lot of software out there that costs big dollars to have this reporting done, and Dave was able to build this in-house for us. So, big kudos to Dave.
Sounds interesting. Appreciate the update. Don't mean to cut things off, but we're approaching our
Nope, I get it.
deadline for the council meeting. We'll have further updates on this, I'm sure. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Also move.